I'm delighted to introduce our panelists for this session, Paving the Way for Web3 Globally. Our first speaker is Maya Noeth, who joined Accel in 2018 and leads the firm's growth stage consumer technology investing efforts. She invests across the entire B2C and B2B2C landscape, including within the digital media, e-services, e-commerce, travel, gaming, and health and wellness verticals, and across internet, mobile, marketplace, and subscription platforms. Prior to Accel, Maya spent 7 years at TCV. Maya began her career in TMT banking at Morgan Stanley. She has also spent time doing early stage investing at Thrive Capital. Maya graduated from Harvard College and Harvard Business School. Our next speaker is Pratik Agarwal, who joined Accel in 2019. Prior to joining Accel, Pratik helped to set up the SaaS investing practice at Accel Partners. Pratik grew up in Rajasthan, India, and holds an MBA from Harvard Business School and a bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Delhi. Leading the conversation is Andrei Brasoveanu, who joined Accel in 2014 and works with the team on Web3, crypto, enterprise software, developer-oriented software, open source, security, and financial services. Prior to Accel, Andrei spent a decade in the US and worked with Foundation Capital and KCG Virtu, the largest equities high-frequency trading firm in the US. Previously, he helped build an algorithmic trading startup on Wall Street focused on commodity futures. Andrei hails from Romania. He holds an AB summa cum laude in mathematics from Princeton and an MBA with distinction from Harvard Business School. Andrei, on to you.
Hi, everyone. As time spent in digital environments is increasing globally, this is prompting exciting opportunities in Web3. Today, my fellow partners, Maya, Pratik, and I are joining from Palo Alto, London, and Bangalore to discuss the platforms and technologies paving the way for Web3 globally. And we'd love to talk you through our global activity in the sector. Many of you may know Accel. We've had close to 4 decades of activity backing founders across the world since the earliest stages, partnering with the likes of Slack, CrowdStrike, UiPath, or Freshworks. Within crypto and Web3, we've been very active over the last couple of years, working with the likes of Chainalysis, the leader in AML, Circle, the issuer of USDC, Sorare, Digital Sports Club, Axie Infinity, InPlay to Earn, Nansen, and Investor Analytics, and several others. And we're continuing to be very active across areas of consumer software and financial services. Pratik, we'd love to hear from you around what got us excited globally about Web3.
Thanks, Andrei. So, it's there is obviously a lot of hype about Web3 and the people with differing views, and some people are very for, some people are very against. But at Accel, what gives us confidence and what gives us conviction in this space is we believe in the theory behind it. We believe in this, the timing is right, and the foundations are very strong. And as Andrew alluded to it, the most important thing, the single uniting thing to Web3 is the time spent in digital environment is growing very, very aggressively. We all notice in our own behaviors, from meeting in person to meeting on Zoom, playing games in real life across the table to hanging out in Fortnite, or enjoying plays in theaters to watching Netflix. You could see every human need is progressively moving into the digital realm. And this is also accelerated by the hardware innovation. You look at AirPods, you look at Oculus, you look at some haptics. Every digital experience is getting more and more immersive. And it feels to us as time spent will move into digital realm, so will commerce. Because wherever human activity flows, commerce naturally follows it. Because people will want to express themselves in digital environment. People will want to mingle and create social bonds in digital environments and enjoy several experiences together. So that is the foundational thing that's happening. But today, there's a big problem in these digital environments. If you look at any of these closed loop ecosystems like Fortnite or Roblox, there are no free markets. They're basically whatever digital goods are available to express yourself in these environments, they're owned by the publisher. There is no secondary sale. You truly don't own it. You can't sell it if you want. You can't trade it. You can't do something else with it. And so we feel given the time spent is increased so much, now is the right time for crypto to create these true free markets in these digital environments. And we feel there are 3-4 different axes on this is playing out. The first thing is just the technology axis. Like without going into details, like blockchain technology is the first time where you can natively own property on the internet, and that thing enables like the free markets. Moreover, like a lot of businesses and a lot of like utilities that created on the internet are networks. And historically, the way these things are financed, the way these things are grown, all the economic surplus accumulates to like the founders or the team or the investors. But in any network, there's so many participants that create the value of the network. They're left out. And so one of the ethos of Web3 is like the community being the fourth constituent in any network with significant upside. And finally, like all of this, because this digital realm is happening all at once at the same time, all innovations are global from get-go, which has never happened in the history of technology. Every time there is like a diffusion of technology from some geography over time, and it takes like decades for it to kind of spread throughout the world. But now this is happening all at once. So we are like super excited about crypto, because this will take over like all human needs, from like finance to media, entertainment, gaming, maybe even work. And we believe like this crypto is truly enabling like a digital planet, almost like a digital Mars.
That's very interesting, Pratik. And you mentioned several areas where Web3 has made huge inroads over the last couple of years. And one of those has been consumer. And Maya, do you want to shed a bit of light on what's been exciting around consumer Web3 over last year?
So I think gaming represents a really promising consumer use case for Web3. And a lot of people don't realize this, but gaming has become the largest blockchain use case based on the number of unique active wallets. And if you think about it, it makes a lot of sense given that traditional gamers typically are digitally native and early adopters of technology. They're typically already accustomed to the concept of buying digital assets like skins and weapons for games, and similarly familiar with the concept of using digital currency like Robux in a game. And so I think these are actually really nice parallels to NFTs and cryptocurrency in the Web3 world. So it's not as big a leap for a gamer to get into blockchain. And I think Web3 games, at least in theory, are compelling in the sense that they solve for the biggest pain points of Web2 games. Pratik, these are some of the things that you were mentioning around ownership. So true player ownership of in-game assets is really a big one on the player side. And then on the developer side, to a certain extent, de-risking and lowering the cost of game development. And just in general, better aligning the incentives between players and developers. So we view that as a really compelling foundation on which to build.
That's interesting. And if you think of the paradigm of evaluating what makes a great game, right? If you think in Web 2, you look at certainly the quality of the studio, the typical kind of engagement metrics, the acquisition model, and how effective is that. Here, in some sense, Web3 has turned the model on its head, right? Because none of these publishers spent anything on marketing. You have the tokenomics aspect. So, can you share a bit of what makes a great game in your view, and how would you evaluate a new publisher in Web3 gaming?
Yep. So all of this sort of got started in the play to earn genre of games. And I think play to earn has done a really nice job setting the stage. And especially the earliest to market have been phenomenally successful. We've seen that firsthand. But I think they're not going to be what brings the mainstream gamer into Web3, which is how you get really, really big and successful ultimately. And so the primary reason for that is play to earn games, at least in their current instance, have decidedly prioritized economic or financial incentives over high quality gameplay and ease of access. And so just to give you a bit more context on that, and thinking about our own internal scorecard for gaming, there are several items that we think about. And those include things like, in general, just even for traditional Web2 games, what is the game quality and the team quality, which typically go hand in hand? What is the strength of the community around the game? What's the buzz that's being created? What's the engagement like? That often leads to retention. What's the in-game economy leveraged or the earning potential for players? And then things more on the sort of top of funnel side, like how easy is it to start playing? What's the breadth of the distribution? How many platforms can you have it be on? And then, of course, the demonstrated traction of the title. So one of the things you have to remember when you're thinking about whether or not Web3 games will be successful is that the status quo is really quite good. And so traditional Web2 games score really, really well along the dimensions I just mentioned, minus the earnings or economics vector, which is, again, where Web3 games really have the potential to shine. So, I think for Web3 games to really become mainstream, three main things need to happen. First, the quality of the gameplay needs to be really, really good, on par or better with Web2 games. And that requires really, really good game developers to start building in Web3. Secondly, I think there's a really big access issue and a ton of friction in general just to start playing Web3 games. So I think we need to see free-to-play models emerge versus the current play-to-earn models where the price of entry is sometimes so high that players need to get involved in these really complex scholarship programs. And we need to remove friction in the model by hiding this blockchain element. We've seen that be successful in a number of other areas in Web3. And if you think about it, there isn't really a reason to make the blockchain front and center. I think it just intimidates the mainstream consumer. And then finally, as part of that, we just would like to see broader distribution. I think that'll take time. But mostly today, it's browser-based. We want to see games be available and synced cross-platform just as they ultimately became on Web 2. And I think the key takeaway is, importantly, I'm really confident these are solvable problems. And I think Web 3 will get there for the gaming category. I just think it'll take a bit of time and require some buy-in from developers and investments in infrastructure. And excitedly, we're really starting to see that happen already. So we think it's very promising.
Yeah, I very much agree with you, Maya. And you allude to the infrastructure. This has been a really strong area of focus for us over the last year. As I think of 2021, it's been an incredible year of growth and exuberance and awareness around NFTs and Web3 and many of the kind of more consumer-friendly concepts of crypto. And I see this year very much a year where foundations for future growth will be built. We're still very, very early, right? It's probably a couple million of active users of Web3, whether it's NFT buyers or players. And if you want to get to the 100 million plus and beyond user mark, we need significant improvements across several areas. One would be scalability, right? Many games actually were faced with scalability challenges and embraced whether it's layer 2 solutions or build their own infrastructure like Accel did with Ronin. Security has been a key area of focus and continues to be one. Every week brings a new hack, and it's whether it's large protocol hacks or users losing access to their keys and assets. This has probably prevented lots of mainstream users to onboard on Web3. And lastly, I would mention user experience. And this is across both accessing Web3 as well as building for Web3. And here we think about stakeholders, whether it's users, investors, developers, and the tools these folks need to better embrace Web3, right? It's right now the barrier is still high, right? You need to on-ramp via an exchange. You have to find your non-custodial wallet, go through many hoops to secure your assets and interact directly with Web3 apps. And as we think of hundreds of millions of users, all these folks will need easier tools, more out of the box that enable them to embrace and engage with all these applications. Mm-hmm. So Pratik, as you've laid out the vision initially, where do you think we are on that journey?
Yeah, it's thanks guys for covering all of this. It's all quite fascinating. Every time I hear about it, my excitement grows. I feel like if you look at the overall ecosystem in the last 15 years or so, like so much has happened. But today, net, I feel like the train has left the station. I think this is a one-way movement now, and there's enough interest from different stakeholders, from people who are developers, users, investors, partners, everybody, that I feel this vision is now on an accelerate path to its fruition. Like if you look at like overall crypto holders, give or take, there are 300 million people who hold crypto either in a direct way or in a non-custodial or in a custodial way. Then there are 20,000 plus developers now working full time on crypto projects, right? And you look at originally, like when Bitcoin started with just the proof that you can have something, one asset that you can truly own. And then it led to Ethereum, where it was like a smart contract platform where you can build any applications. And now like people push the limits of Ethereum through several applications and tests. And now you have so many different smart contract platforms, all with different philosophies, all with different implementations, all trying to kind of just release this amount of activity, such that today, like there are 10,000 apps. That's quite a lot in terms of like just the amount of software that's built out, and in this is attracting a lot of users. Like if you look at users of some of the more popular apps, like financial apps such as Uniswap, it is like 500,000 monthly active users. And even while like overall ecosystem is so early, you could see the amount of engagement of some of these apps. Look at Accel portfolio company, and it speaks at 2 million DAU, and like had like billions of dollars of asset trading. You look at like other games like Splinterlands, which is consistently several hundred thousands of daily active users. So these are like enduring companies. These are enduring experiences that people have voted with their time and money that they want to spend time on this. And this is only growing. If you look at the whole amount of money that has flown into the ecosystem, it's like $700 billion. So I feel like this is just now a matter of time where more and more developers will continue to push the limit of the infrastructure and force innovation from these infrastructure provides to enable the consumer experiences that will attract the next 100 or several hundred million people in this ecosystem. Andrew, I have a question for you. You know, people often ask us that, like, so much of this innovation seems like very distant or isolated. Like a popular question that people ask me and friends ask me is like, what is the impact that when will people start to see impact in everyday life around them? Do you share, like, what's your view?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question, and I think it's one can answer that also by looking at the current apps out there. If you think of Web3 today, right, whether it's DeFi apps or gaming apps or NFTs or so, they're very much Web3 native apps. In that they oftentimes rely on Web3 native companies, crypto rails, oftentimes built by crypto native teams, and in some sense, they're geared towards folks who have fully embraced Web3, whether it's the, let's say, more conceptual or let's say the principles around decentralization and true ownership, or whether it's folks who've been acting in crypto for a while. But this still constitutes a barrier for mainstream adoption. And what we're starting to see is that more Web2 players are looking to embed Web3 in their applications, right? And an area we've seen that happen in has been with fintech, right? Where many of the large fintech players, whether it's trading apps or banking platforms, are looking to embed some sort of crypto product. Same thing we've seen with gaming. So, but this displacement will take a long time, right? And we don't expect Web3 to suddenly take over the world. In fact, I see Web3 and Web2 coexisting for many, many years to come. There's a lot of legacy infrastructure, whether it's Swift in payments or AWS and other centralized vendors we all rely on, that will be here for a while. So I see it more as a case of gradual encroachment and more developers and companies and users seeing the benefits of Web3 with every year as we go. So this very much wraps up our discussion. In short, we're incredibly excited about this whole category. On our side, we're keen to back founders in this area from the earliest stages, and nowhere is too far for us. So we've backed, beyond Bay Area, London or Bangalore. We've backed crypto founders across Montreal, Serbia, Vietnam, or Singapore. And we know that many crypto teams are distributed across the world, and we work closely globally to engage and support the best founders wherever they may be. So thank you all so much for tuning in. And thank you, Maya and Pratik.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.